standing orders. There are a few other people, by the way. We have standing requests for interviews, but we'll make this one of them. I was very sad to see yesterday that the Impala Platinum mine disaster, another person died. That takes it to 12. Very, very difficult times in our mining industry and very, very difficult times for people there. The NHI debate, we expected to happen, the vote in the National Council of Provinces. It wasn't. It was, what's the phrase Parliament uses? Deferred. I don't quite understand why, but something happened. I think business was in sort of direct contact with President Cyril Ramaphosa for the moment. That would seem to me to be the most likely sort of reason, but it's not very transparent. So let's see. The city of Joburg, the ANC EFF Patriotic Alliance, the AIC, voted again for Floyd Brink to be the city manager in Joburg. Now, court said that this was illegal. I think there may be a question around whether the decision yesterday is in contempt of court or not, because one of the main parts of the judgment was that there'd been a failure to properly advertise the position. And they won't have advertised the position, if you see what I mean. Since then, I'm sure the DA and others are going to say, no, this is contempt of court. But let's see if that does go to court again. And I suspect, I'm afraid, that it may not. From time to time, there's been a drum we've been banging around the lack of accountability, so far as we can see, for the violence in KwaZulu-Natal in July 2021. And yesterday, a man called Ndumiseni Zuma, no relation to former President Zuma, he was sentenced to 12 years in jail. What he did was he recorded a video basically saying that we were going to sort of burn this mall down, inciting violence. You're not allowed to do that. And it was 12 years in jail for him. So the first sort of case around that. Good to hear from you this morning, as always. I think the situation around the city of Joburg is interesting. The SANDF, we're waiting for replies there. Just infrastructure generally. I mean, we're back on stage 5, stage 6 load shedding. Is it possible to run a business now at all? I don't know. 086 000 2032. USMS 41391. You tweet us FM Radio and at Stephen Quotas. Send your WhatsApp voice notes to 0614 104 107. Good morning. You're with SAFM. It's 14 after 6.
Gautrain is for the legends who make moves to save and pay from as little as 45 Rand from Pretoria to Midrand. It's for our clever who turn 5-liter bottles into workout dumbbells. And for the slim oaks who bring a home-cooked skaftin to work every day. So when it comes to travel, make moves that save and pay from as little as 45 Rand from Pretoria to Midrand Station. Gautrain, for people on the move.
AmaZulu FC and TS Galaxy FC both believe they will make it to the final of the Carling Knockout Cup. However, only the great outfit on the day will celebrate the final whistle. KwaZulu-Natal versus Mpumalanga. Lesotho battles it out with the Rockets. Catch the Carling Knockout Cup semi-final contest between AmaZulu FC and TS Galaxy FC this Sunday, 3 December at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC 1 and SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
The Daily News Diary on SAFM.
Leander, Mayome, good morning. I feel that it's the end of November, like it's the Thursday, like it's November before December, it's Thursday before Friday.
In fact, I'll do you one better.
Yeah.
I'll just go away for a week.
No, that's not what's supposed to happen.
Let's just do that for now, so I can come back a little bit refreshed and take care of this festive season, shall we?
Indeed,
absolutely,
yes.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I see you slept late last night.
Yes,
yeah. I saw you dressed in a bespoke suit there.
Bespoke,
looking absolutely amazing there, Stephen. Hey,
well, what are you saying about how I normally lok? Thank you, Leander.
Hey man, didn't make any reflections about that. Just spoke about yesterday.
Yeah, very interesting. I mean, look. As I say, the former Chief Justice Mogoeng is an interesting figure in many ways.
Absolutely, absolutely. Always, like you said, it's always good to hear from him and just to find out what he's thinking about one or two themes that are going on in the country. So that lecture, definitely worth a revisit. I didn't catch all of it. Definitely going to be, just listening again.
What's coming up today?
Today, Stephen, you spoke about this a little bit earlier. The DA will be tabling a motion for the dissolution of a council at the Johannesburg City Council meeting this morning. This after Floyd Brink has been reappointed as city manager, despite a court ruling that his appointment was procedurally flawed. Now, the city is now heading to the SCA after losing its application to appeal a High Court decision, which set aside Brink's appointment. Yeah, that story just keeps going.
I mean, and I don't know. I mean, I know the DA is likely to say this is contempt of court. I don't know if it is technically or not. It does. There's something about the whole politics of Joburg at the moment that seems just unfixable.
Yeah, no, it's just one of those soapies that we just can't seem to get around, Stephen. So let's find out what happens there. And also still in courts, Stephen, in the Eastern Cape, the trial against the Enyobeni Tavern owners continues in the East London Regional Court. Now the state has closed its case against them. Now it's the turn of the defense to continue to bring their witnesses to kind of prove their innocence in this case. And of course, we still don't know exactly what it is that happened to those kids.
Such a strange story. And
Very
I mean, the fact
strange
that parents weren't given documents and things is just bizarre.
For me, I just find it very odd. Very, very odd. In court still, Stephen, 2 Limpopo learners arrested in connection with the stabbing to death of a schoolmate in a bullying incident will this morning make their first court appearance in the Bela Magistrates Court. Now, the suspect stabbed 18-year-old Putego Munaring at Maope High School. Sad story when that happens, especially in a school.
Too often.
It's happening quite a lot these days, and it's very sad. The Defend Our Democracy movement, Stephen, will be launching a national civic society campaign, Election Watch, aimed at observing and pronouncing on the integrity of the upcoming elections for 2024. And of course, this is just one of those. Everyone is just kind of, on the edge of their seat for this one because, these elections,
Yeah, well, we'll speak to them just now and ask what it is they're actually monitoring.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
And finally, Stephen, memorial service for the former Orlando Pirates captain, Papi Khomane, who passed away in a car accident last week together with his mother and uncle. You would know that Papi Khomane was the captain of Pirates and is the son to Pirates legend Johannes Eyster Khomane, who remains the longest-serving captain of the team. Very sad story there.
Yeah, and, especially someone like that. And the family suffered a double blow, of course. So
my goodness me.
Yeah.
It's just, it's one of those very, very sad stories, Stephen. That's what we have for you today.
Leander Moyome, as always, we'll be listening on the radio. Thank you very much indeed. 19 after 6.
First in the morning, SAFM Sunrise with Stephen Grootes.
Let's have a look at your weather around the country this morning. Tshwane, cloudy in the morning, otherwise partly cloudy, 18 and 29. Johannesburg, cloudy, partly cloudy later, 14 and 27. Vereeniging, cloudy in the morning, otherwise partly cloudy, 16 and 26. Bombela, cloudy, isolated morning showers and rain, 16 and 22. Polokwane, cloudy, isolated showers, rain in the morning, partly cloudy later, 15 and 23. Mahakeng, partly cloudy, 16 and 32. Vryburg, partly cloudy, 17 and 34, Mangung fine 9 and 33, Kimberley fine 17 and 35, Uppington fine 15 and 34, Cape Town fine a light southerly wind 18 and 33, George fine a light northeasterly wind 14 and 29, Gqeberha fine a moderate northeasterly wind 14 and 24, East London fine a light to moderate northeasterly wind 12 and 25, eThekwini partly cloudy, light morning rain, a light southwesterly wind 16 and 24, Richards Bay partly cloudy, light morning rain, a moderate southerly wind 17 and 25, and Pietermaritzburg morning fog, otherwise partly cloudy 11 and 23.
The Northwest Provincial Legislature on Premier, Finance, Cooperative Governance, Human Settlement and Traditional Affairs will conduct public hearings on the Northwest Adjustment Appropriation Bill and Northwest Financial Bill on Unauthorised Expenditure on the 1st of December 2023 at Makgore Community Hall in Makgore Nakamudiri Mulema District, Mogopa Community Hall in Ventersdorp, Dr. Kenneth Kahunda District, Seking Tribal Hall in Dr. Rufse Gamutsi Mompati District, and Mortele Community Hall in Bojanala District. All public hearings start at 10 o'clock.
Hello, Michelle. Hope you're well. You know, Mos, I'm not very lucky for online internet shopping things after Uncle Donnie got a second loan on his house to pay for some escort in Portugal's child to go to university. But listen, I'm addicted to this We Buy Cars auctions. Every day you can buy cars. My finger is jikkerig on the smells. I'm going to click anytime now because I want a fancy fast car. But my husband is making me so moeg. I'm sommer listen auction him. I nogal wonder how much I will get.
We Buy Cars, the best place to buy a car by far.
The beauty, power, elegance, and speed of horse racing.
The passion at the heart of horse racing diligence.
Where these magnificent creatures and their skilled jockeys compete for glory.
Racing today.
Catch it live on Mondays to Fridays on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com.
Hashtag Horses of Great Character. Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Worldview Update, bringing you closer to international news.
21 after 6, good morning. In Ukraine, it appears the fighting between Russian forces who invaded the country and Ukrainian forces trying to recover territory lost to Russia may again being locked in some kind of horrible stalemate. Winter now coming to that area, which makes it harder, almost impossible to fight. At the same time, Ukraine, of course, dependent on Western arms and ammunition, and particularly on support from the United States, which now says it's trying to mediate peace between Israel and Hamas in the Middle East. For Ukraine, the question may well be, is the US now distracted? Professor Abel Eerstehuizen is a professor of strategy at the Faculty of Military Science at the University of Stellenbosch. Professor Eerstehuizen, good morning.
Good morning, Stephen.
Is there any movement at all in the fighting in Ukraine, or has winter sort of already stopped that for the next few months?
Well, it's interesting that Russia shifted the maneuvering away from the battlefield in the last couple of months. Of course, there was an opening, if I can call it like that, of a second front, so to speak, by shifting the attention to Gaza in a way, using the Palestinians and using his connection in Iran to do that. So that's the one thing we've done. Another thing that we've seen is the start of so-called dirty tricks that we've seen from Russia before, but in the last week they have poisoned the wife of the chief of the intelligence division of Ukraine itself. So that's an interesting development. And then, of course, something that have been under the radar for quite some time, but Russia is busy with an interesting game, I almost want to say, by feeding illegal immigrants into Europe at the moment, and they're using the Finnish border to do that. So they're bringing illegal immigrants from Africa and other places through Russia, and they place them on the Finnish border, so to allow them to walk across the border and into Finland. So that's an interesting sort of movement and strategic maneuvering to shift the attention somewhat away from the war in Ukraine. And then, Stephen, interesting, in the West, there seems to be political will to continue the support for the war in Ukraine. But at a bureaucratic level, they're finding it difficult to do two things. Firstly, to approve the funds through the bureaucratic channels. We've seen the interplay between the president and the Congress, the Senate in the US for the approval of funds. So that's the interesting sort of political maneuvering that's going on. But at the same time, they're also having the same problem as Russia, and that is to physically produce the weapons. And the West, like Russia, is running out of particular weapons to supply to the Ukraine, and this specifically concerns artillery rounds. So there's interesting movements going on.
So there are different sort of parts of this, and in a way it's a game of pressure. Putin is clearly, the Russian President Vladimir Putin is clearly putting pressure on sort of Ukraine's allies in interesting ways. When you suggest that there's a sort of, is there any kind of link between the Russia-Ukraine conflict and Hamas's attacks on Israel in terms of the timing? I realize that, Russia does have interests in the Middle East, but I presume that Hamas would have done those attacks anyway.
Well, there's a lot of debate going on about that. I have no doubt that it was a fine coordinated move from Russia and Iran to use Hamas and Hezbollah to shift the attention away. Russia, in a way, is at an operational level actually not doing that well at the moment, and perhaps we need to reflect on the offensive, the summer offensive. The Ukrainians have actually been fairly successful because they have driven the Russians out of the Russian Black Sea Fleet out of the Black Sea. The Russian Black Sea Fleet is now sitting in the Sea of Azov. It's almost boxed in the Sea of Azov. So that's the success they've had. They were fairly successful in isolating the Crimea Peninsula. That's another very important success, I think, from the summer offensive. And then, thirdly, they have succeeded in eroding Russia's fighting capability to the point that Russia is actually mobilizing people.
Oh dear. We seem to have lost Professor Eerstehuizen there. All right. It may be actually difficult to continue that conversation. Sorry about that. But important points coming through there. The view there of Professor Abel Eerstehuizen, Professor of Strategy in the Faculty of Military Science at Stellenbosch University. 27 after 6.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, good morning.
Morning.
I know that all is not right with the world, but it somehow seems more normal when Mamelodi Sundowns are back at the top of the table.
It does feel like it. I mean, they're unstoppable. The Yellow Nation claiming a 2-0 win over their rival SuperSport United. Lucas Moripe Stadium was where the action happened. And of course, Sundowns returning to the top of the Premiership standings. The Brazilians, who had not played in the domestic league since late September, were leapfrogged at the head of the table by Cape Town City this past weekend. But goals from Peter Shalulile and Lucas Ribeiro helping them to a 9th successive Premiership win since the start of the season, a new PSL record. Elsewhere, Sevilla, they crashed out of the Champions League, throwing away a 2-goal lead in a 3-2 defeat by PSV Eindhoven, while Manchester United are on the brink of elimination from the Champions League after twice blowing a 2-goal lead to draw 3-3 at Galatasaray. A point leaves them still bottom of Group A, and they need to beat Bayern Munich in their final match at Old Trafford to have any chance of qualifying. Let's listen to their boss, Erik ten Hag.
Some stage we play like I wanted my team to play. It was enjoyable to watch them, and so proactive, dynamic and brave, and we scored great goals. And even after we had some setbacks, we kept going till the end, because in the end we should have won as well with the big chances from Scott McTominay and Pellistri. So yeah, of course I'm disappointed, because we should have managed the game better.
In the other match, Arsenal reaching the Champions League knockout as group winners by thumping Lens 6-0 at the Emirates Stadium. Arsenal progress from Group B alongside PSV Eindhoven with Lens out. Rugby, the Sharks prop Oxenshire acknowledges last week's 69-14 thrashing of the Dragons in the United Rugby Championship has instilled a new sense of belief in the camp. The Durban-based team spent 5 weeks in Ireland, Italy and Wales, losing all their matches before returning home for their lone victory. Nche, who made a welcome return to club rugby with fellow World Cup winners Makazole Mapimpi, Ibn Etzebeth and Jaden Hendrickse, feels that results have elevated their confidence.
Well, when we got here, there was as well like a sense of excitement as well when we got here, and it's still the same. But now, guys, I think it's because of the win that we got on the weekend. Guys are like, you know what, actually what we've been doing, what we've been practicing can actually win us games, and we can actually make it happen. I think that's just a tiny like mindset thing that will like, for me personally, that I might have picked up, that, you know, what we're doing can work, and, you know, the sense of belief seems to be there now.
That's Sharks prop Ox and Chair on Sunrise. We'll have more sport for you. Headlines, top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
He was the winner of the semi-final, wasn't he? That scrum penalty. All right, lots coming up in the next little while. We'll find out a little bit more about Paul Peters, the former Transport Minister. The punishment Parliament is now enforcing against her. You with SAFM leading the conversation. Stage 5 now. Stage 6 from 8 p.m. at 6:30.
Thank you, Stephen. In your headlines, Electricity Minister Dr. Hosien Tsuramkgopa is today expected to receive the first consignment of energy equipment that China has donated to South Africa. He says the donation, which he will receive in Pietermaritzburg in KwaZulu-Natal, forms part of the technical assistance program that the two countries were entered into during the Chinese president's state visit to South Africa in August. Auditor General Tsakani Maluleke has reported an improvement in the government audit outcomes. She has confirmed that about 2.4 billion rand that the government departments and entities had lost has been recovered through the audit process in the past financial year. And the Deputy Minister of Communications and Digital Technologies, Phili Mapulana, says digitization has negatively affected the viability of the post office. Mapulana was speaking during an economic cluster ministerial oral reply session in the National Assembly yesterday. I'll have details on these and other stories at 7.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. The standout queue around Gauteng is the R55. If you leave the Laudium area and you head south towards into Centurion, direction Midrand, there's a really big backlog of traffic. R55, you're going to be asked to sit in that down towards the Vrede Road junction this morning. Gauteng Highway's looking okay, a little bit lighter volumes this Thursday. That's interesting. The N2 through Spaghetti Junction, very slow. Just started to queue up at Durban's N2 North through the interchange towards the M13 works, but it's literally standing still N2 North as you ramp onto the N3 into the roadworks inside Spaghetti Junction for turn into Durban, if you like. And just keep in mind, we saw this yesterday and we'll probably see it again today and for the next few days. Roadworks starting to intensify now on the N3 highway between Paradise Valley, Pinetown and Spaghetti Junction. If you came in from Pinetown yesterday through towards Pavilion, you got stuck in some very heavy traffic as these lane restrictions go in ahead of that big N3 upgrade. So from 9 a.m, good driving into Durban, just watch for some backlog. It can also affect the outbound side as well. Cape Town, bit of a bottleneck around the N7, Jake Scoville Drive at the N2. We saw that yesterday afternoon. Busy conditions. We're just seeing it again this morning. And even a little bit lighter than normal around Cape Town this morning. The standout traffic, really the N1, Belleville through to Stable Road, backing up. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The business update on SAFM.
Ray Machlaka, good morning.
Good morning. Hi there.
Asian markets, US markets, how are they looking?
Well, both markets are up across the board. The investor focus is on China's economy, which is still showing signs of a struggle. China's factory activity fell in November for the second straight month. The global demand for goods produced in China continues to be lower. So in Asian markets, Japan's Nikkei, China's Shanghai Composite, and Hong Kong's Hang Seng are each up 0.2%. US markets were mostly up yesterday, and before the US market officially opens later today, the futures market is up. Nasdaq, Dow Jones, and S&P futures are each up 0.3%, and the dollar to the rand is 18.72.
And then Black Friday last week. Did it work out? Was it a bit of a flop, maybe?
Not really. Spending on Black Friday took a big knock this year. Many consumers did not participate in the shopping frenzy because of affordability problems. Bankserv Africa is the biggest payment system operator in South Africa, and Bankserv Africa has tracked the total value of in-store and online shopping transactions made by consumers last week Friday, and the total value of transactions came in at 4.5 billion rand. This is down by 8% compared to the same time last year when Black Friday sales reached 4.9 billion rand. Retail therapy is becoming difficult and out of reach because of high interest rates and the cost of living crisis.
So last week we spoke to Takealot about the fact that Amazon is coming. They seem to be very confident. Should they be?
Well, Takealot is quite confident. Takealot will face more competition when Amazon retail launches in South Africa next year. Takealot is owned by Naspers, and Naspers says it has been investing in Takealot to expand its delivery network in South Africa and the range of products it sells online. Naspers says in South Africa, Takealot is ahead of Amazon because it already has an extensive delivery network and knows the local market well.
Ray Machlaka, thank you very much indeed. Back, of course, in an hour, more business news through the day here on SAFM.
Africa Update on SAFM Sunrise, a continental overview of current African affairs.
Russ Advocate Sipho Mantula, good morning.
Stivovo, refreshing money and Jumbo Africa to the listeners.
The Conference of the Parties, we call it COP. COP28 beginning in Dubai. We know that climate change already having a big impact on Africa. Look at the heat wave in Gauteng. Look at the flooding in Somalia. What's Africa's aims at this summit?
Stephen, what is Africa's pushing for this Dubai COP28 will be around the issues of just energy transition, climate change finance, funding for adaptation. And as we have said, Africa has been experiencing the deadliest impacts of heating planet. You have spoken about from Somalia to Kenya. We know also this year there was Cyclone Freddy that hit the tropical of the southern Africa, killing at least 1,000 people. We saw the floods also in Morocco and Libya. Actually, Libya and Morocco, there were challenges of climate change there that we saw. So African bloc is represented by Zambia, where they'll be pushing for more issues in Dubai. It will begin today, Stephen, and it ends on the 12th of December.
And then ECOWAS, they're due to rule on that complaint about the former Nigerian president, Mohamed Bazoum. What's the situation there?
The current situation is that the matter was before the Nime Court of Appeal. It went to ECOWAS Court of Justice beginning of the month. Now today, there's an expected decision that ECOWAS has to come on the issue of Bazoum's arrest since the military coup in July. Stephen, remember that President Bazoum has been under arrest, and there was an attempt of escape from him in October, but there was no details being given. So we'll expect today to hear what the ECOWAS Court of Justice, what will be their ruling on the current arrest of the former president of Niger, knowing that Niger has gone through this for many years of military coups and also arrest of their own heads of state. So we'll wait and see, Stephen, what will come out of Abuja on the ECOWAS Court of Justice.
And then the DRC elections, they're very important elections, and the EU's cancelling its electoral observer mission.
You know, Stephen, they are using the word technical reasons, but here they are talking about security assurity in some of the reasons. They are saying they are struggling also to can deploy some of its observers come the 20th of December next month for the elections. But also they are looking at their essential telecommunication equipment that has not yet even arrived in the DRC. Remember that I spoke about it earlier this month, that they have sent what we called an advanced team, a long-term observer mission experts, but it seems that they are pulling them out and they are still trying to look at maybe they can leave the electoral experts to remain in the DRC, but it appears that the EU won't be observing the elections in the DRC on the 20th of December 2023.
And then the iconic Kaunda suit, former President Kenneth Kaunda, there's a sort of ban by the Kenyan Parliament about this. Why?
Stephen, this is sad because not only the Kaunda suit, even the traditional African attire is no longer allowed in Parliament. And the Speaker of Parliament actually challenging President Ruto, because President Ruto was seen frequently donning the Kaunda suit during official events. Now the Parliament is claiming that this is against the parliamentary dress code. So it went on a social media in Kenya yesterday, Stephen, where people were saying, but why are you forbidding African attire in an African parliament? Others express support of this ban by the parliament, Stephen. This is very sad when you look at Africa, how we should be Africanizing our parliaments. Instead, we are westernizing them with the foreign attires, wearing suits and ties all the time. But Kaunda suit, I don't see any problem, Stephen. I think it's just a matter of how the Speaker of Parliament dealt with this matter.
Very interesting. I mean, often for our events, it's just, formal or traditional, but they're both often the same thing. And then as Sipho, when I saw this, I was like, wow, I remember it so clearly. The 30th of November, 2004, I was actually in the room for this.
It's almost 19 years ago, and this is coming from the minister now in the cabinet of President Ramaphosa, the independent Democrat leader, Patricia de Lille, taking a stand at the Durban High Court to testify in the fraud and corruption charges against the Durban businessman Shabi Sheikh on the matter of the arms deal. Stephen, remember this was the arms deal case that included the French arms company as well as the former president Jacob Zuma. An interesting moment that happened 19 years ago in our historical archives. Asante Sana SG, as we are still leading the conversation.
Russ Advocate Sipho Mantula, thank you very much indeed. Of course, back tomorrow. More news from our continent through the day.
Stephen Grootes on SAFM.
I see the communications regulator, ICASA, should be careful. They regulate us too, but they were talking yesterday about Starlink, and Starlink, as you know, is that the sort of satellite internet, right? If you've got a receiver, you can basically get the internet anywhere. And they're actually not operating in South Africa. They haven't applied for a license in South Africa. And one of the issues, it's sort of presumed, is because that to operate here, they would need to give up a fair amount of ownership for black economic empowerment. That's my understanding of it. And ICASA is saying yesterday that people who are using Starlink equipment in South Africa are doing so illegally. But I suppose what I don't quite get is you can say that, but how are you going to stop it? I mean, you're going to have to go into people's houses and look for their equipment. I mean, are you going to go door to door? And I mean, I don't know what happens after this. And I think there's a big conversation we should have around this. The best way to manage, if we want black economic empowerment, that's fine. It's gone through Parliament. You can't argue against it. There's a democratic process. It's the outcome of that. That's important. And there's a reason why we have black economic empowerment in the first place, we must never forget. But how are you going to go door to door to say, do you have Starlink equipment? I don't see how that can work. I think that's an important question. I don't know if you have a view on that on 086 000 2032. There are other questions, of course, as well this morning, and watching the situation around what's happening in Parliament and the NHI, and also watching the situation around Joburg, and then, of course, infrastructure as well. Tando on the line from George. Tando, good morning. You want to talk about Russia?
Yes, Stephen, before I get to Russia, man, just this issue of Starlink, you know what, Steve, I'm always skeptical of anything that is introduced to South Africa by the people from the West, like Starlink, everything like Starlink and all these things. Because somehow
Elon Musk is from Tswane, but I take your point.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah. You know what? Because these guys introduce these things, and then they want to use the very same things that they introduced to us to bully us. If we don't do this, they're gonna take this away. Like exactly like they are doing with everything else. We had now they want to remove us from fossil fuels. Things that, for instance, we have coal in South Africa. They want us to go to renewables. I've got nothing. I've got no issues and I've got no issues with renewable energy, Steve. But we don't have. I don't think we do have the technology or of running those. Now what we do is this. Now we use like the technology from like Germany and what are these countries, and then when we don't agree with, like for instance, like with issue of AGOA, when we don't agree with America on whatever it is that then they want to use that.
But Tando, I mean, there was a time when a coal-fired power plant was a sort of, I suppose, developed Western technology. I don't know. And then also, once the technology is working, I mean, they can't stop it working. What are they going to do? Block the sun? We have lots of coal. We have lots of sun too.
Yes, but Steve, but we don't. Like for instance, let's make an example with Zimbabwe, right? Zimbabwe is under sanctions. They can't use their aircraft or planes. They can't fly they don't have parts to fly their aircraft because they have to get parts from abroad, right? So we don't have the technology to run these turbines, these wind turbines. Stuff your parts for those things have to come from the German Siemens and all those. So what I'm saying is, Stephen, I don't have no issues with renewable energy, right? But what I'm scared of is that when we allow these people to when we want to use their technology, they want to use these things to bully us if we don't agree with, say for instance, the issue of Russia or Israel, and we say this is what our stance is, and then they'll tell us, all right, we'll take away our Goa or threaten us with these trade deals and what. That is not right, man. They want to use everything. Why can't we have our own technology or our own Starlink in South Africa? Why must we always be dependent on these guys that they will take these things and use it against us when we don't agree with them? On their foreign policies and stuff like that.
Right? No.
Be bullied by these guys like this, man. No, man. Yeah. I mean, as I say, I've got no issue with renewable energy or anything, Starlink or whatever. Yeah. But we cannot use these guys every time. We want to be dependent on them when we don't agree with them on Russia or in Palestine and Israel. Okay. They're gonna say, no, well, if you don't, then we're gonna take this away from you, and we're gonna be again.
Okay. Tando, yeah. All right, look, I think we've heard you. I mean, I don't know. I mean, once you've got the device, they can't stop your car running once you've got it, or things like that. And it comes down to development as well. I mean, if we want our own Starlink, well, then we'll need to develop it, I suppose. 6:45.
You see, change happens, and it improves our lives. Change is good. It opens doors to new horizons and leads to a more informed tomorrow. Being in the know is no longer for the selected few. Information is for all of us to enjoy, whenever, wherever. Sunday World, putting the latest stories, sports results, exclusive video content, and celebrity news at your fingertips. To stay informed, download the Sunday World app today. Available on the App Store and Google Play. Sunday is just the start.
Manene namanenekazi.
Dove is not just gentle and moisturizing.
It took great care of the nation
During the Rugby World Cup France 2023. Dove rocks, just like the box.
Danko Unilever for your remarkable contribution to the momentous journey of global heroes.
Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Across South Africa, online and on radio. SAFM, let's talk.
13 minutes to 7 the time. Good morning. A new organization called Election Watch being launched by the group Defend Our Democracy, obviously ahead of the polls next year. The deputy chair of the Defend Our Democracy movement is Regotsofetse Chekane. Regotsofetse, good morning to you. Thank you for your time. What will Election Watch be doing?
Morning, Stephen. Thanks for having me. So Election Watch is a very simple initiative that Defend Our Democracy has started, and it's really asking the question of how do we ensure we maintain the integrity of the elections on that particular day. A lot of work by civil society is really focused over at least the last 2 years around doing voter registration, voter education, and civic education, all with this intent of making sure that we have a very high quality election. And our belief is to contribute to that work. And in addition to that, on that actual day of elections, how do we bring civil society and ordinary citizens into the voting stations as official accredited observers to ensure that nothing happens at voting stations that shouldn't be happening, to be able to communicate with the IEC through our platform called Election Watch, and to ensure that every citizen has the ability and every organization has the ability in a very coordinated manner, rather than haphazard, everyone doing their own thing in different corners of the country, but in a coordinated effort to essentially say, how do we observe and ensure that the integrity of the elections are maintained?
So you would basically have your own monitors. And I mean, I presume you're not making a comment about the Electoral Commission. You just want to strengthen the elections, right? But would you actually have your own monitors then, people wearing bibs?
Yeah, so it's exactly that. So we are not trying to replace the IEC. We're working alongside with the IEC with one common platform. And the idea is that we get organizations to register onto our system. And once they register onto our system, whether you're an organization or individual, we then put you through a level of training alongside with the IEC to make sure that you know exactly what to do. And then we provide you with a mobile application and tools for you to be able to report back about incidences, any sorts of flare-ups, any sort of deviant behavior that might be happening at a voting station. So that is essentially the essence of it. Us training organizations and individuals to become election observers in particular, who are accredited by the IEC.
Regotsofetse Chekane, thank you very much indeed. Deputy Chair of Defend Our Democracy.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Well, an early start to very busy conditions on the M1 linking Pretoria through to Joburg this morning. It's a stationary bus on the left-hand side of the N1 South, just at Olifantsfontein, and that is quickly pushing traffic back through the Brockfontein interchange. N12 driving in from the east out of Ekurhuleni towards Geludi's is slow, and the Mike 1 this morning already queued from Boysons through towards Empire Road in the Brownfontein area. A reminder, if you leave Pretoria West and come out of Laudium on the R55 towards Midrand, big queues there expected into the Vreda Road Junction. That is a very heavy standstill backlog of traffic. Durban, the Higginson Highway, slow out of Chatsworth towards Havenside. Not as bad as it was yesterday, but it is starting to build up. We'll keep an eye on the M7 into Pinetown, just getting a bit slow at St John's Avenue Bridge. Again, not as bad as it was this time yesterday, back to Hans Detman, so it's nowhere near that, but it is busy. Cape Town Marine Drive, already slow out of Tableview to Sunset Beach. The N2 inbound from the airport through to Mowbray Main, that's very busy. And queues out of Kales River to Belleville this morning on the Strand Road from the R300 very slow moving through Stickland towards sort of Peterborough Road. Now, behind that, the R300 struggling to flow off that highway and into Van Riebeek Road, or into Strand Road, if you like. So, R300 North starting to backlog from Stellenbosch Arterial. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Ford is turning 100, and there's never been a better time to buy a brand new Ford. We're giving away 100 vouchers worth an amazing 50,000 Rand each, and the sensational grand prize of us paying for one lucky winner's Ford. It's the celebration of the century. Visit a Ford dealer, buy a new Ford, and win. T&Cs apply.
Manene namanenekazi.
Dove is not just gentle and moisturizing.
It took great care of the nation
During the Rugby World Cup France 2023, Dove rocks just like the box.
Danko Unilever for your remarkable contribution to the momentous journey of global heroes.
Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
First in the morning, SAFM Sunrise with Stephen Grootes.
8 minutes to 7 the time. Parliament now formally acting against the current Deputy Minister for Small Business Development, Dipuo Peters, for her role as Transport Minister during the state capture era. She was found to have committed wrongdoing and to have fired the board of Transnet when it was led by Popo Molefe after the board had found evidence of 14 billion rands worth of corruption. Parliament now says Peters will be suspended for a full term, but she will still be paid a salary. The complaint was laid by Zaki Ahmad, leader of Unite Behind. Zaki, good morning. Is this an appropriate punishment?
Stephen, let's talk the impact. Good morning. Let's talk the impact of what the poor Peters and MPs like them did. As we speaking, the Western Cape Premier has declared an intergovernmental dispute because of the enormous cuts to health, to the HIV program, to education and social services. So the question, and that is happening across the country, the government does not have money because a significant amount of money has been stolen, including at Eskom. The MPs, the members of parliament and a deputy minister, someone who's in the executive of President Ramaphosa, has in fact been party to and has benefited from corruption herself. The difficulty that we all face is that the sanction that has been given is not commensurate to the actions that she took to protect the corrupt and promote them.
Zaki, the line is beginning to fade on us.
The corruption of giving the ANC money.
All right. Zaki, I'm sorry.
Hello?
Yes, the line is beginning to fade on us a little bit. What kind of punishment would be appropriate? I mean, you would want to see her out of the executive? You would want to see her no longer a deputy minister?
That's the minimum. She also has to pay back the money for the court case. She has to be out of the executive, and the ANC Ethics Committee is duty bound to take action against her. Now, I would like to see that. You would like to see that. Every person in South Africa would like to see that. MPs must be accountable. So Unite Behind and I have gone to court to make sure that the poor Peters is also sanctioned for the corruption related to the ANC, the money related to Swifambo, the money paid, the money she wasted on a not appointing a board and a CEO. Those are the things that we have to make sure happens. Not only her, Sifiso Buthelezi, Joe Maswangani, and the others.
Do you believe
Sorry?
Do you believe it's ever going to happen? I mean, the fact that some people are still in the executive, I think for some people might find quite frustrating. I mean, it seems no action's being taken.
There are three things we have to do, all of us. The first is we have to complain to the ANC and keep up the public pressure on them. We must make their faces known everywhere. That is a critical part of our duty as people who live in South Africa. The second part is that we have to regrettably go and litigate and make them pay personally. And the third question is that when people like me get into parliament, we must not let these MPs sleep. We must not let their party sleep. We must keep on hammering, because I have no doubt that the ANC will bring back corrupt MPs.
Zaki Ahmed, thank you. We'll leave it there. Leader of Unite Behind. I should have mentioned at the beginning that Zaki Ahmed is in fact running as an independent candidate for Parliament next year, but he is the leader for the purposes of this interview of Unite Behind.
At SFM Radio and at Stephen Grootes on Twitter.
We'll have a big focus on jobs and infrastructure in about 20 minutes from now, and the impact that our failing infrastructure, Eskom and Transnet, are having. But I thought that we would check in first with the National Union of Mine Workers on the number of jobs that are now going in their industry. The NUM's Deputy General Secretary is Mpho Pakedi. Mpho, good morning to you. You say 10,000 jobs are going in your industry. How bad is it?
Good morning, Steve. It's very bad considering that those individuals are supporting families behind them. If you have to use the ratio of 10. There are 10 people behind each and every person who will possibly lose their job. So it's terribly bad.
Are we seeing it happening in certain places? We know that the coal mining industry, the coal prices have come down. We know platinum prices have come down too. Pricing is part of it, but Transnet's a big part of it too.
Yes, of course. Transnet is a big contributor to job losses currently. You will note that companies companies in the industry such as coal, iron ore, they are sitting with a stockpile. They cannot deliver or they cannot transport their stock purely because Transnet is failing them.
Do you believe that Transnet's ever going to improve? I know you have colleagues in the same union federation as you at Satawu. Do you believe Transnet's going to improve at all?
Look, there's no hope by the look of things because this is not just something that has happened now. We are very much frustrated by the response of government equally. Our expectation will be that when this thing is affecting the economy of the country, the government must respond swiftly, must respond immediately. There must be action, heads must roll, but unfortunately we don't see that.
There was a big meeting, I think, day before yesterday between business leaders and President Cyril Ramaphosa. Transnet, I know, was a big part of that meeting. The situation at Eskom, a big part of that meeting as well. We see the private sector playing a much bigger role in infrastructure in our economy than perhaps ever before in the history of our country. Of course, on the plus side, it might mean that things work more effectively. We see the sort of private operator coming to Pier 2 at Durban Harbour, for example. The minus side is that it means the private sector are involved in infrastructure that used to be owned by government and was a public good. Is that the right course? Are you worried that business might have too much influence?
Well, of course, business will have too much influence and of course, we'll be worried because Transnet, we wouldn't prefer that it should be privately owned at some point. But we will be happy if it's owned by government because it's an entity that people must access, ordinary people must access, such as ordinary communities. But of course, I guess business is left with no option. Hence, they opted to intervene, and for them is to push their business. For them is to make sure that their operations comes back into being operational, and of course that could change everything that is happening. We wish that could have happened long time ago.
Mpho Pakedi, thank you. Deputy General Secretary of the National Union of Mine Workers. I think an important conversation. More on that. We'll speak to Professor Adrian Saville about all of the problems that have built up over the years and what that's doing to our economy now. Also, confirmation from Sandra in the last couple of moments, the Premier of Limpopo, Stanley Matabada. He'll be on your radio. They've given 57 bakkies to traditional leaders in the province. The car's costing around 50 million rand. We'll find out more about that in the next little while. You with SAFM, leading the conversation at 7 o'clock. Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 rand. SMS out to 38462. Now that's good news.
Independent and impartial. This is SAFM News.
Thank you, Stephen. In your top stories, Ramokgopa to receive energy equipment from China, and the AG reports improved audit outcomes. This is SAFM News. A very good morning. I am Luyanda Maume. Electricity Minister Dr. Kgosientsho Ramokgopa is today expected to receive the first consignment of the energy equipment that China has donated to South Africa. He says the donation, which he will receive in Pietermaritzburg in KZN, forms part of the technical assistance program that the two countries entered into during the Chinese president's state visit to South Africa in August. Kalisa Kempenze reports.
The Minister of Electricity says first consignment consists of 450 coastal generators to be distributed to public service facilities nationally. The Ministry says this will be used at clinics, schools and courts. This, they say, is while government continues to implement the Energy Action Plan. This is a country battles ongoing load shedding. I'm Kalisa Kampenze in Durban.
The equipment will include generators which will be used to alleviate the impact of rolling blackouts on the government and the government's efforts to deliver basic services. Clinics, schools and courts are expected to benefit from the donation. Ramokgopa will receive the equipment as government implements its Energy Action Plan, whose aim is to ultimately end rolling blackouts and ensure energy security. The Auditor General Tsakani Maluleke has reported an improvement in government audit outcomes. She has confirmed that about 2.4 billion rand that government departments and entities had lost has been recovered through the audit process in the past financial year. Maluleke revealed this yesterday when she briefed Parliament's Standing Committee on her audit office outcomes of government departments for the 2022-23 financial year.
As a consequence of the MI process and the responsiveness of accounting, we can now indicate to the Honourable Member that 1.29 billion rand of financial losses have been recovered. 500 million rand of financial losses have prevented contract cancellations, and 700 million rand of financial loss is in the process of being recovered. A total of that is 2.5 billion rand of resource protection that comes out of the effort of Team AGSA using this. Remember, I said that financial loss was estimated at 14 billion rand. And if you compare it to 2.5 billion rand of recovery,
the Deputy Minister of Communications and Digital Technologies, Phili Mapulana, says digitization has negatively affected the viability of the post office. He was speaking during an economic cluster ministerial oral reply session in the National Assembly yesterday.
One of the things that impacted negatively on the future viability of the post office has been the impact of digitization. The impact of the internet has made communication through letter post redundant, so to speak. So this has had a significant impact, not only in our own postal office, but globally. All the global postal operators are struggling under this. So all of them are transitioning to embrace the digital era.
Presidential spokesperson Vincent Magwenya has given the assurance that President Cyril Ramaphosa will not merely rubber stamp Parliament's work on the National Health Insurance Bill. The National Assembly has already passed the bill, and after the NCOP passes it, the bill will go to the President for signing. Magwenya addressed the media in Parliament yesterday.
The passing of the bill does not necessarily mark the conclusion of the process, and the President does not, each time he receives a bill, just signs it, as a given. He has a constitutional duty to properly evaluate the process, to look at the constitutional alignment of that bill, and if he so desires, he can, open another round of consultations.
And finally, tributes are pouring in for the former U.S. Secretary of State, Henry Kissinger. He died at his home in Connecticut yesterday at the age of 100. Kissinger is regarded as a key architect of U.S. foreign policy in the 1970s. He was controversially awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for his part in negotiating the peace accords to end the war in Vietnam. Sherwin Price Peace reports.
Kissinger served two presidents as Secretary of State with a history in government described as both influential and polarizing. The German-born American diplomat played a pivotal role in opening up diplomatic relations between the United States and China, but also plotted against democratically elected socialist governments in South America. After leaving government in the mid-1970s, he started a geopolitical consulting firm that kept him in the foreign policy space until his death. Hailed by some for his diplomatic genius, he was labelled a war criminal by others. Sherwin Bryceby's SABC News, New York.
Recapping your top story, Electricity Minister Dr. Kgosian Tshuramogopa is today expected to receive the first consignment of energy equipment that China has donated to South Africa. For SAFM News, I am Luyanda Maume. Headlines at 7:30.
Leander, thank you. Outsurance will go out of their way. Those were the top stories for this hour. Don't miss out on a possible car insurance saving. SMS out to 38462 for a quote. Outsurance, where you always get something out. Is your cash flow tighter than a squeeze through the Kango Caves? Make your financial journey smoother by asking Outsurance to save you money on your car insurance premium. If they can't, ask them to pay you 500 Rand cash. That's monthly savings, or 500 Rand cash if they can't beat your premium. Claim free, and with the same insurer for 3 years, ask for 1,500 Rand instead. SMS out to 38462 for an Outsurance car insurance quote. That's out to 38462. Outsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's apply.
A very good morning to you in your SFM Sports Headlines Soccer. Banyana ready for the Women's Africa Cup of Nations test against Burkina Faso. And Mikel Arteta has led Arsenal back into the Champions League after a 7-year absence. We'll find out more just before 7:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Well, we've got the stationary, a Putco bus with trailer blocking the left lane on the N1 South through Midrand, just by Olifantsfontein. So you're down a lane, and that's already pushing traffic back in towards Brockfontein interchange. It's a heavy one out of Pretoria to Joburg this morning. Also expect those queues on the R55 leading Laudium. Going to sit in very heavy traffic down to the Vrede Road junction this morning. Pinetown traffic looking quite busy, particularly the M13 from St John's Avenue Bridge is queued all the way to the Roadworks at Paradise Valley. The M7 Bluffbound is queuing down to Bel Air and to Wakesley as well. Cape Town, the N1 inbound, fairly heavy this morning from Plattekloof towards Cuba interchange. The M5 is just all backed up as well from Kenilworth through to Maitland up towards the Barclay Road exit. And as we warned earlier, the R300 is now queuing up from Delft up towards Problems, getting off at that Strand Road, Van Riebeeck Road exit return in towards the Stickland area. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
SAFM Sunrise. A vivid start to your day.
8 minutes after 7, good morning. You're with SAFM Sunrise. I'm Stephen Grootes. Well, good to have you along with us this morning. We'll speak to the Premier of Limpopo in just a few moments, Stanley Matabata, and just talk a little bit about what seems to be, quite a big sort of amount of money, 50 million Rand, giving vehicles to traditional leaders. We'll find out more about that. And then, of course, we'll talk a bit more about our economy as well. So much to look at with the infrastructure problems that we have. Your mediated conversation at 8:30 is about HIV, living with HIV, the impact it still has on communities, and the science of HIV as well. They're words I've had to practice to pronounce around whatever it is, antibodies. They're very interesting and they're very important. We'll find out more about that from 8:30 as well. Don't forget a conversation as well to come around Cuban engineers. We'll speak to the Deputy Water Affairs Minister, David Mkhlobo, about that. You with SAFM 8 after 7.
Banyana, African champions and top 16 team in the world are in action on Monday the 4th of December 2023 at the Lucas Moripe Stadium at 3 p.m. They are on the road to defend the trophy as they face Burkina Faso for the Women's Africa Cup of Nations 2024 qualifiers. Join us to close the year. Tickets are available at Ticket Pro at 20 Rand for adults and free for children under 12 and scholars in uniform. You can also watch the match live on S3 at 3 p.m.
The Northwest Provincial Legislature on Premier, Finance, Cooperative Governance, Human Settlement and Traditional Affairs will conduct public hearings on the Northwest Adjustment Appropriation Bill and Northwest Financial Bill on Unauthorized Expenditure on the 1st of December 2023 at Makhore Community Hall in Makhore Nakamudiri Mulema District, Mogopa Community Hall in Ventersdorp, Dr. Kenneth Kahunda District, Seking Tribal Hall in Dr. Rupse Gamutsi Mompati District, and Morotele Community Hall in Bojanala District. All public hearings start at 10 o'clock.
It's in the weight it carries. So much, yet so very little. So desperately sought, yet so minimal the search. In places run dry and those in flood. In things that rip, yet keep us whole. In the fractured, where cures await. In planets cupped in little palms. In minds young and aflame. In the reach of those dare not reach. In things pulled down, stretching for sky. In steps with purpose, with no direction. In possibilities, dancing just for you. In familiar yearnings, yearning for familiarity. In eyes kept forever on you, so nothing is strange. Yes, it's in hope. Hope in light pulled near and sent afar. Yes, hope from us to you. SABC Education, enriching minds, enriching lives.
Stephen Grootes on SAFM.
11 after 7, good morning. Well, the Premier of Limpopo, Stanley Matabata, now formally handing over 57 bakkies to traditional leaders in the province. It's costing around 55 million rand. As you know, traditional leaders play an important role in our society. Outer has suggested Limpopo has not been able to deliver on a promise to get over 400 ambulances for communities there. Well, the Premier of Limpopo, Stanley Matabata, is on the line for you now. Mr. Premier, good morning, and thank you for your time on SAFM.
Good morning, Stephen, and good morning to your listeners. Limpopo distributed 565 ambulances this year only.
560?
So that, 565.
Okay, so Outer
anyone
is wrong.
who says we failed to deliver 400, I don't know why he or she finds the story.
All right, no, I accept that. Within that then, why did you decide to spend 55 million rand giving these vehicles to traditional leaders?
Let me correct something. It's not only 57 cars. 57 cars, bakkies, were the first batch that we procured. We are supposed to give 102, I think, this year, 102 vehicles to our traditional leaders. And we are very convinced that we are doing the right thing, and it's for a good cause, because we see the traditional leaders or traditional leadership as an institution, as a very important or vital, should I say, as a very vital component of our democracy. So Limpopo being as rural as it is, with this backlog, this road backlog that we are having, road infrastructure backlog that we are having in this province, we felt for them, these mahoshis, these traditional leaders, for them to be able to carry out their responsibilities, that of ensuring that they provide service to our people, that of ensuring that they remain that pillar of our democracy at that local level, then they would need what you would call the tools of trade to assist them to be able to carry out that responsibility.
Right, no, I understand that. Did these leaders have vehicles before? Had the provincial government given them vehicles before that you're now replacing?
We are doing this. We have been doing this. In fact, I inherited this program from my predecessors. We have been doing this throughout. Every 4 to 5 years, we give our traditional leaders vehicles. I think, as a premier, I think if I'm talking under correction, I may have done it twice, because I've been a premier for more than 10 years now.
Okay, bakkies, tough bakkies can go for a long time. Why are you replacing them every 4 or 5 years? What happens to the ones that you're actually replacing? What happens to the older ones?
You see, Stephen, these roads that I'm talking about are rural roads. And in most instances, your car will not be able, even a bakkie will not be able to last too long. It may last, they may last if depending on who's taking care or who's driving this vehicle. But in most cases, if it is a car belonging to a traditional leader, normally the people at Moshata will be using it, the community will be using that car. And you and I know, Stephen, that any car that is driven by more than one person does not last
long. Do they come with petrol cards as well? Are you paying for the petrol?
No, we are not paying for that petrol. We would have loved to do so, but we are not doing it now because of the scarcity of the resources that we are in.
Okay. As I understand it, the sort of announcement was this goes to deserving traditional leaders. Were there any traditional leaders who were not deserving?
Absolutely, because there is a criteria that we are using to qualify somebody to be a deserving traditional leader. Some would be regents. So a regent may not necessarily deserve to get a vehicle. In some instances, you don't have a permanent traditional leader. In that particular case, you wait until you elect. I mean, not elect. Sorry, traditional leaders are not elected until the royal crown appoints a traditional leader. It's then that the traditional leader will be deserving.
So you see this from the way you've described it, when you suggest that communities are driving the cars, you talk about the roads. Is this then for you not so much about giving cars to traditional leaders, but about service delivery? It's an investment in that. Is that how you would see it?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. A claim will come, Mr. Premier, and I must put this to you because I must give you a chance to respond to it, but someone somewhere is going to say that this is actually about giving bakkies to traditional leaders at this time so that they will tell their communities to vote for the ANC in the elections. How would you respond to that?
Well, I don't know what that means, because you can't stop delivering services simply because you are going to elections next year. Really, I don't think that has never been a factor in as far as I'm concerned. I've been opening roads. I'm still going to open roads. I'll be opening new schools. I've delivered ambulances, like I was telling you. Last month I delivered 35 ambulances in a hospital in Groblersdal. We're delivering 35 ambulances for the local hospitals and clinics in that area. So that function will continue up till the end of my term as a premier. As to whether it happened on the eve of election or it happened long before the elections, I don't think it's a factor in as far as I'm concerned.
Mr. Premier, thank you very much indeed, and thank you for answering my questions. Stanley Matabata is the Premier of Limpopo, 17 after 7.
Dove is not just gentle and moisturizing.
It took great care of the nation
During the Rugby World Cup France 2023. Dove rocks, just like the box.
Danko Unilever for your remarkable contribution to the momentous journey of global heroes.
Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Is your cash flow tighter than bumper-to-bumper traffic on the N1? Navigate the financial gridlock by asking Outsurance to save you money on your car insurance premium. If they can't, ask them to pay you 500 Rand cash. That's monthly savings, or 500 Rand cash if they can't beat your premium. Claim free and with the same insurer for 3 years. Ask for 1,500 Rand instead. SMS out to 38462 for a quote. That's out to 38462. Outsurance is a licensed insurer and FSB. T's and C's apply.
First in the morning, SAFM Sunrise with Stephen Grootes.
Well, 18 after 7, now seems we're seeing all of the problems that have built up over the years having a big impact on our economy. More and more evidence that problems in our infrastructure are leading companies to cut jobs. Earlier, you heard the NUM saying mines can't continue to operate when they can't cut their coal and other products. They can't get their coal and other products to harbours on trains because of Transnet. That means jobs are being cut in the mining sector. ArcelorMittal saying this week it needs to cut 3,500 jobs. It also doesn't see any improvement at Eskom or Transnet in the short term. And then the steel industry saying government has created a situation through Eskom and through industrial policy which means steel producers can't survive anymore. Professor Adrian Saville is a professor in economics, finance and strategy at the Gordon Institute of Business Science. Professor Saville, good morning.
Morning, Stephen. Good to be with you.
It seems that we're seeing all of the problems building up over the years coming together to make it impossible for businesses to operate. They can't make goods. They can't create goods. Has this been a long time coming?
This has been a long time in the building. And, if anything, South Africa has escaped the circumstance of infrastructure collapse because of the significantly installed infrastructure, that was the start condition. And it was a long way from perfect. South Africa has always been underinvested in infrastructure and malinvested or misinvested through the way in which the infrastructure was built historically. All of that said, there was a viable energy enterprise. Transnet, was until relatively recently in good functioning state, able to get stuff from pit to port. And not only has this infrastructure erosion or corrosion put serious headwinds into South Africa's economic face over the last decade or so, these have now become sinkholes.
We keep being told there'll be fixes for infrastructure, promises are made, load shedding will get better, Transnet will improve. I get a sense time's actually run out.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure what stage we are on this morning, but it's probably somewhere between 4 and 6. And that is after, here we are, 2 years into the promise of urgent remedy and repair. So that's the very, very dark cloud. One of the things that I think escapes a lot of commentary is not just the economic erosion that we see, but the things that we don't see. So, for instance, all of the commodity price buoyancy in the immediate post-COVID period that simply escaped South Africa. So we had a 180 billion rand fiscal windfall. If we had functioning infrastructure, the commodity boost to government coffers could have been comfortably double that number. So there's a lot of stuff that simply escapes the eye in terms of the economic impact, not just the numbers that are observed in terms of job losses and flat or zero economic growth.
ArcelorMittal said this week it doesn't expect the economic picture in South Africa to improve, doesn't see changes at Eskom or Transnet in the short term. I mean, do you agree with that prognosis? It's very gloomy, but I think it's maybe also very clear-eyed.
It is gloomy. I'm going to use exactly your word. It's gloomy and clear-eyed because it remains the case that from a policy front, South Africa is involved in ambiguous policy, that it's not always entirely clear what the policy direction is. And in the same breath, we are underinvested in this absolutely critical infrastructure. So for this to be remedied, for us to become hopeful, two things need to happen. The policy frameworks need to be cemented, stable, solid, with clear language and clear direction, and then that needs to be underpinned by solid investment, and not just by the state. I think it is critical to recognize that for South Africa to achieve economic, social transformation, it is necessarily a public-private collaboration.
The steel industry in particular is blaming government, I suppose the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition, for some of its problems. They claim the current policy actually helps scrap metal merchants. There's a ban on the export of scrap metal. That basically means it's easier to sort of melt it down and sell it here. It means that producing sort of new steel from iron, because it uses so much electricity, is difficult to do. You talk about sort of difficult policy or policy that's slightly contradictory. Is that a big part of this problem? I mean, from what the steel industry says it is, but obviously, they're not entirely objective.
I think it would be naive to not to recognize that, of course, they have an agenda or an objective, to be less cynical, in my language. But of course, they've got an objective, which is to promote their industry. You would anticipate the exact same narrative from any other industrial leader who's on the back foot. But if we take a step back from this, I think it's fair to suggest that notwithstanding a growing number of master plans to bring about industrial recovery and to promote South Africa's competitiveness, and in particular in important sectors like these primary manufacturing components, there's just no evidence to point to, or almost no evidence to point to. There's some silver linings. Let me not be entirely dark about the economic commentary. There's some silver linings. So there's some very healthy recovery in the tourism sector, for instance, which is valuable because of its labor absorptive nature the fact that the spillovers and multipliers in terms of economic impact, employment impact from that sector will be quickly felt. But in these core industries, and importantly, in industries backed by master plans, there simply isn't the we need to suggest that these plans are coming to fruition.
We keep seeing government and business in big talks. They were meeting again this week. We keep seeing a bigger role for the private sector to deal with some of these problems. I think some people think, yay, the private sector will save us. I don't know if that's the case. Is the private sector really going to make a big difference? Can it make a big difference? I mean, its resources are finite too.
Yes, the resources are finite. There's perhaps just three things that I'd observe in your note. The first is that there is no country that has achieved a transformed, inclusive, holistic structure without a public-private partnership. That it is necessary that both public and private sectors are in the arena, and that they are working together, that there is cooperation and collaboration. I think that's the first component. The second is that South Africa, over a long time, has evidenced very high capability in the public sector. We are, world known for our ability to build multinational corporations out of a unobvious place. And I think that speaks to South Africa's private sector capabilities. And the third is there is a valuable vault of available capital. South Africa's private sector balance sheets generally are in good shape. We've got deep capital markets, so there's access to funding. So what you have in the private sector, if you can get this viable partnership, is you've got a capable partner with deep pockets.
Professor Adrian Saville, thank you very much in time. Thank you for your time. Really appreciate the insights. Professor in Economics, Finance and Strategy at the Gordon Institute of Business Science. You're with SAFM 27 after 7.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, good morning. Banyana, they'll rely on Mamelodi Sundowns. I shouldn't laugh.
Yes, the ladies team of Mamelodi Sundowns. This is when they'll be participating, Stephen, in the final round of the 2024 Women's Africa Cup of Nations qualifier. This evening, kickoff at 8 p.m. Banyana will take on Burkina Faso. The game will be played in Ivory Coast as the West Africans do not have proper facilities to host the encounter. The Mamelodi Sundowns ladies team recently played in Ivory Coast, where they were crowned the CAF Women's Champions League winners. Yes, Banyana keeper Andile Dlamini, understanding that they cannot underestimate any opponents.
A country that I'm familiar with because we play Champions League here, but it's a different task now playing for the national team and it's AFCON qualifiers, and I think that our mentality is on 100 because we want to qualify for AFCON. We're the defending champions, and I believe that for us to win this game, it's going to give us an upper hand when we go back at home, because we also don't want pressure when we go back home. We want to play for the fans because it's our last game of the year as well, and we want to make everyone happy and proud. So it's very, very important that we don't underestimate our opponents.
Now, in the other match, there's soccer action with Arsenal reaching the Champions League knockout stage as group winners. They thumped Lens 6-0 at the Emirates Stadium. Arsenal manager Mikel Arteta.
At the end is the capacity and the amount of resources you have to win a football game. How many ways can you find to win a football game? And sometimes it will be that the weather doesn't allow you, sometimes that the fatigue because you played 3 days before, sometimes the opponent, sometimes you are not at your best, but the team always finds a way to win it. And that comes with mentality, in my opinion, a lot, and having that will to win regardless what is happening, and take it personal and make it happen.
Now, Arsenal are on the brink of elimination from the Champions League after twice blowing a 2-goal lead to draw 3-0 at Galatasaray, while Sergio Ramos scored the 10,000th goal in the Champions League as Sevilla named the oldest starting 11 in the history of the competition in a 3-2 defeat against PSV Eindhoven. And finally, rugby, Springbok prop Oxenshire acknowledging last week's 69-14 thrashing of the Dragons in the United Rugby Championship has instilled a new sense of belief in the camp. On Saturday, the Sharks will head to Loftus for their first derby of the season against the Bulls. The game will be played at 3 p.m. and in what has been the warmest 2 weeks in Gauteng, Insher is unconcerned about the weather or altitude issues.
We have like 23 pretty strong players, and our philosophy is pretty similar to the box, that to just give it your all for as long as you can, and the next guy can do the same. Practice, like guys, this is probably like our sixth game, and guys have been playing full games, and they're fit enough to actually play at altitude or whatever. So we're gonna keep to our philosophies, and then the only thing that we can really get out of it is a better team.
More sport on Sunrise headlines, top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
Zai, thank you very much indeed. David Mahlobo, the Deputy Minister of Water Affairs, we'll ask him what Cuban engineers have done that South African engineers can't do. They're coming up in the next half hour. You with SFM leading the conversation. Stage 5 now, stage 6 from 8 o'clock at 7:30.
Thank you, Stephen. In your headlines, the City of Johannesburg Metro Council has confirmed the reinstating of Floyd Brink as city manager. This week, the city lost an appeal of a ruling of the High Court in Johannesburg, which set aside Brink's appointment. Electricity Minister Dr. Kgosientsho Ramokgopa is today expected to receive the first consignment of energy equipment that China has donated to South Africa. He says the donation, which he will receive in Pietermaritzburg in KZN, forms part of the technical assistance program that the two countries entered into during the Chinese President's state visit to South Africa in August. And a total of 12 Israelis and 4 Thai hostages held by Hamas in the Gaza Strip have arrived in Israel after being handed over to the Red Cross. This is the 6th group to be released in as many days of a temporary truce. I'll have details on this and other stories at 8.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Well, the N1 between Pretoria and Joburg stays a lot heavier than you'd like it to be this morning. There is a broken down Paco bus with a trailer which is stuck at Olifantsfontein Road, and that's keeping the pressure right back to Brockfontein interchange. And I'll tell you how heavy it is. It's forcing a lot of traffic out onto the R101, which is then jamming from the N1 highway exit the old Joburg, sitting down towards the Olifantsfontein Clayville off-ramp, if you like. So heavy on the N1 and pretty heavily backed on the alternative R101. Some pressure again on Malabongwe Drive out at Kaya-Sam, between Cosmo and Kaya-Sam. Very heavy both directions. Also the Heidelberg Road up through City Deep in towards the sort of M2 highway territory. Very slow going through there. Durban, the M7 into Pinetown, queuing again up to St John's Avenue Bridge. The M13 out of Pinetown, very slow towards the roadworks at Paradise Valley. And the M7, worth a mention, that's queuing from Queensborough down towards the Bel Air and Wakesley Junction. Ashburton through to Cato Ridge, doing okay this morning. No major problems there. And it may be to do with the problems we hear around Durban Harbour, but the normal big Thursday backlog of trucks that you have coming from Howick and Hilton on your way to Durban, noticeably not really there this Thursday. You can almost guarantee it, but not this morning. It's pretty quiet in terms of truck volumes. Cape Town, very heavy on the R300 running north from Delft all the way through to the Van Riebeek Road off-ramp to Cales River and Stickland. The problem there is Strand Road coming off the R300 into that Stickland area is heavily jammed up. And the N7 north passing Lunga, that's quite busy this morning up towards the Viking Way Junction in the Epping area. And not too bad out of Table View. The road works that have been lifted on Bloberg Road really eased that run down towards Refinery. But as you come out and onto to Kuberg Road, there are some lights off at Plattekloof Road, so a little bit of an extended wait to get through there in that junction. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The business update on SAFM.
Ray Machlaka, good morning. Asian markets, US markets, how are they looking?
Well, in the current trading session, both markets are up across the board. The investor focus is on China's economy, which is still showing signs of struggle. China's factory activity fell in November for the second straight month. The global demand for goods produced in China continues to decline. So in Asian markets, Japan's Nikkei, China's Shanghai Composite, and Hong Kong's Hang Seng are each up 0.2% 2%. US markets were mostly up yesterday, and before the US market officially opens later today, the futures market is up. Nasdaq, Dow Jones, and S&P futures are each up 0.3%, and our market, the JSE, was down 0.5% yesterday. The shares of retail and mining companies were mostly down.
And then the owner of Pepcor, Pepcor, the Transnet having a huge impact on them.
Yeah, Pepcor is a retailer that owns Pep, Ackermans, and Techie Town. The retailer has been badly affected by the congestion and mess at ports operated by Transnet. Pepcor has goods worth 700 million rand that are stuck on the sea. The goods have been stuck on vessels for up to 2 weeks outside ports operated by Transnet. Transnet ports are unreliable, with the breakdown of equipment and aging infrastructure causing chaos and congestion at ports in KZN and the Eastern Cape. Pepcor says the shelves at its stores are stocked well this festive season, despite the problems at Transnet ports.
And Sibanye-Stillwater also going to cut jobs at its platinum group metals operations in the US.
Yes, Sibanye-Stillwater plans to cut jobs in South Africa, but also in the US. In South Africa, Sibanye-Stillwater is already consulting with workers and their trade unions to possibly cut 7,000 jobs at its platinum and gold mines. Sibanye has now announced that there will be job cuts at its mining operations in the US. About 300 jobs will be cut in the US. Sibanye wants to cut company costs by reducing its workforce.
Ray Machlaka, thank you very much indeed. Ray, of course, back tomorrow. More business news through the day here on SFM.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
James on the line from Johannesburg. James, hi. You heard the conversation around Limpopo. We spoke to the Premier. It was primarily around the cars that are being given, the vehicles that are going to the traditional leaders in their communities. Hi.
Hi, good morning, Steve.
Go for it.
I'm breathless. Is this the Matawati, the Premier of Limpopo, the Peter Ratin province? The province that failed to deliver the textbooks they keep everything in here. The province where in some rural villages are struggling to get water. The arrogance, the condescending voice, the pride. He doesn't see anything wrong with what he is doing. Do you understand? I feel sorry, for those rural folks and what they're subjected to. The way they're so overgoverned. Now there's this new layer, of traditional leaders who are busy taking their resources, gaining their advantage. Those cars, even are nothing but sticks or whips, if you like. They are there to empower these traditional guys, to whip those rural folks into submission.
Sure, James, sure.
To tell the land to go and vote for the ANC. It is so despicable. The arrogance. I'm shocked. Thank you, Steve.
All right, James, a very strong view there. Quite strong language about it as well, but a very strong view, as you can hear, about this. We've sort of put the questions to the Premier just to see what the answers. He heard a strong denial. He said that this had nothing to do with the elections. Obviously, everyone's going to have their own view on this. Voice notes coming through as well in 0614 104 107 this morning.
Good morning, Stephen and SAFM team. I'm sorry. Where do they go about handing out buckies every 4 or 5 years? Because the roads are bad. Fix the roads. Fix the infrastructure. And instead of buying buckies, feed the nation. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, voice notes there. Others coming through?
Good morning, Stephen. I'm quite shocked at this conversation that you're having with the Premier of Limpopo, that they spent over 50 million rand, if that figure is correct, that I heard, on buckies for traditional leaders. My word, isn't it cheaper to fix the roads? Because he was saying that the roads are so bad, they have to buy them buckies. This is Craig.
Craig, thank you. Yeah, look, strong views on this. I did think that there might be, but I can imagine there might be strong views going the other way as well. 21 minutes to 8.
Score big with Diadora South Africa, and your soccer team could soon face your opponents in Diadora gear. Show off your love for the game and gear up for victory. Join the competition now for a chance to win a full soccer team kit, a goalkeeper kit, and accessories. All you have to do is follow at Diadora.SouthAfrica on Instagram. Tag your team and teammates in the comment section of our posts. The competition closes on the 30th of November at 2 p.m. T's and C's apply.
# we love it here.
This great initiative is supported by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Get ready for an adventure of a lifetime with SABC TV Licenses Ultimate Competition. Feel the pulse-pounding excitement of a Bundesliga match live on an all-expenses-paid journey you'll never forget. Or embrace the rhythm of your dreams at the Coachella Music Festival. The choice is yours. A football fan's paradise or a music lover's haven. Simply pay your TV license, then head to www.winaholidaywithsabctvlicenses.co.za for a chance to win big. And don't forget, there are incredible weekly prizes up for grabs too. TV licenses. Pay yours. Make a difference.
SAFM. Prime time all day long.
Well, a big event this week. There's been the 7th South Africa-Cuba high-level panel meeting. The government says that's been efforts to strengthen the long-standing cooperation in the fields of water and sanitation. As you know, there's a group of Cuban engineers here. I think it's 25 Cuban engineers who've been working on some of the problems we've had with water for some time. The person who led the panel meeting is the Deputy Minister of Water and Sanitation, David Mahlobo. Deputy Minister, good morning. Thanks for your time this morning.
Morning, Steve, and morning to your listeners. Thank you very much.
Did I get the number right? It's about 25 Cuban engineers that are working here.
We are exactly correct.
What have they done that our engineers, South African engineers, can't do?
Stephen, it's not about what our South African engineers, they can't do. Your introduction was very, very correct. There is an existing relationship, bilateral relations between our two sister countries that we enjoy from the time of His Excellency President Nelson Mandela and President Castro. They signed those agreements in a number of fields where we are cooperating. It's not that our cooperation is just today. And when it comes to water and sanitation, our cooperation is spanning over 20 years. We have celebrated 20 years of our existence. In other words, these Cuban patriots, they came into South Africa to help us in areas where, as a country, we're not having adequate skills in terms of the numbers. When it comes to our major infrastructure, our dams in the main, Stephen, and these people have been deployed in what we call it our construction unit. You remember we manage our water management system, all these big dams, whether in the Western Cape, the ones that are supplying Eskom, whether in Limpopo, whether in Gauteng. They are helping in the main around structural conditioning, assessment, fixing most of our problems, because to do that job, Stephen, you will have to be an approved professional person. And in our country, that level of approved professional person, the numbers are very thin. Even in our own department, we have only one. That's why, if you recall the situation of Jagersfontein, it took time even for them to deal with dam safety issues. But we're also using them in some of the rural schemes, in supporting some of the rural water development in various communities in Mpumalanga, in KwaZulu-Natal, Limpopo, and Northwest.
So
they are not here to take our jobs. They are here to train our young engineers. Remember, for you to become an engineer, you firstly become a candidate engineer, Stephen. And you have to be supervised by professional, experienced, registered engineers to be able to do that. Therefore, our view is that this is not a permanent arrangement, but is to build the necessary capacity that is required by our department, but also supporting certain water services authorities who don't have engineers. And
Okay.
you know their water system
sure.
up there has been run down because they don't have professionally qualified individuals.
So, sorry, Deputy Minister, we have heard the response. So you're saying that these engineers can do things that our engineers can't do. They're better qualified. And you say it's not permanent, but the relationship's been going for 20 years.
Even you should be in a position to appreciate this relationship has been over 20 years. These engineers, as I'm saying, the number is so minuscule, 25. And the engineering requirements for this country, whether it's civil, mechanical, there's still a shortage. It does not necessarily mean that our engineers can't do these things. But these people that you're talking about, you can't find them in the public service that can be able to be paid what we're actually paying. But this relationship, as I'm saying to you, most of the work, when it comes to bulk water infrastructure, our dams, our canals, and our complex systems, these Cubans, compatriots, they've been able to assist because they know how to manage it, including the issues of supporting us because they are from an island around issues of flood management and disaster management so that our infrastructure doesn't collapse at any point and cause the risk both to environment and humanity. But it does not necessarily mean that we are not actually training our own.
Okay.
Our own department even has an academy where we actually take young people, we send them to universities, they come back with engineering degrees, but they are not engineers. Then we actually do mentoring and coaching programs, including assisting them to register with professional bodies.
Okay. So, Deputy Minister, you made the point that we pay for them. It's not for free. We're paying them, and I presume, because they come from a different country, that the agreement with Cuba is that we pay them in US dollars?
Well, I will not be able to say whether it's US dollars or not because I've never checked the issues of whether are we paying them, is it dollar rated, whether it's what in terms of the payment. I will be lying to you.
Okay. How much are we paying Cuba for this agreement then, for the 25 engineers?
Well, there is a budget that has been made over the period that they are here for the next 5 years, and we will pay them not more than 50 million rand in terms of our own currency, which is not actually even money that I can call it a salary, because in the main, they are being given a stipend, and they are also given the logistical support when they're here in South Africa.
So we're paying 50
million.
million.
And if you can go to the market, Stevie, you can go and get a professional engineering consultant. You'll be paying more than what we are paying in terms of comparative analysis.
I don't know if you'll be paying more than 2 million per engineer a year.
Well, Stephen, engineers, as I'm also a professional scientist, I know those who are working in private sector per year, they're actually making about 7 million.
Deputy Minister, thank you very much indeed. David Mahlobo, the Deputy Minister of Water Affairs and Sanitation. Well, as you know, there has been discussions in the past about the relationship with Cuba. Your view, 086 000 2032. You may feel that Cuba is helping South Africa. You may feel something else. It's 13 minutes to 8.
At SFM Radio and at Stephen Grootes on Twitter.
Jessica on the line from Venda Delela Makonga around the Buckies for Leaders in Limpopo. Jessica, hi.
Stephen, how are you?
I'm well. Go for it.
I want to talk about these buckets that are being given to traditional healers. I feel like they are deserving. I'm from a rural area called Gondeni, Amavunga. We've got a king, today I'm going to call him by his name. He's called Colin Mavunga, and he does very great things. We've got over 500 chests and tents that are given to people who've got funerals. They use their own vehicles, they support the community, and they do a lot of things that I feel like whatever that goes to them, they are deserving 100%. And if people feel like the MEC is doing it for the vote, it's fine as long as at that time we have the service that we deserve, because they are doing great. The kings are working. There is a lot of things. We even have societies that we bury each other. We collect money, 10 rands per household, to bury each other. And it's something that in a lot of villages is not happening. So I'm going to applaud my own king. Big up for our king, Colin Mavunga. He's doing great. and I support it 100%. Thank you very much.
So, Jessica, you would agree with the Premier when I asked him, is this about actually empowering communities? So for you, your community is being empowered through this scheme, and it's not so much about giving the vehicle to the traditional leader, it's about making the vehicle available to the community.
100%. My village is being supported. I can assure that 100%. There is a lot of things that I've went to different villages. They are not there. The kings there, they are not doing that. So whether it's bakkies, whether it's whatever that they're giving to the kings, some of them are deserving. Maybe there are those who are not doing something. Yes, we cannot speak of all of them, but some of them are deserving.
Jessica, thank you very much indeed for your view. Beno and Sekakune in Limpopo. Do you agree with Jessica?
In my call, I certainly.
Oh, Beno, we can hardly hear you. Beno, I'm going to ask you to call back, or we'll try and call you back. I'm sorry about that. Billy and Mahakeng, hi.
Good morning, Stephen, and how are you?
Yeah, I'm well. Go for it.
Thanks very much. Stephen, I'm also concerned about the package given to the traditional leaders. You asked Mr. Premier one question, of which I don't think he did answer that one, when you asked him what's going to happen to the old package. I so wish the Premier could have answered that question, because my view is that it simply means that every 4 years they'll be given new package, and it means it's just a year prior to the elections. So he didn't answer that question as to what happened to the old ones.
Well, he said that basically they don't last because of the roads, I think was what he was trying to say, that the roads damage the cars.
Yeah, but if they don't last, Stephen, what's happening to them? They're replacing them. Are they taking them back, or are they giving them back to the community? That's the question. That's my
No, sure. No,
but I want to understand.
Yeah, Billy, I think it's an important question. That's why I sort of asked it. Thank you. On the line from Mahakeng. Back to Sekakune now. Mpo, hi.
Good morning, Stephen. How are you?
Yeah, well, as loudly as you can, please. Go for it.
Yeah, maybe sometimes when things like this of giving traditional leaders some cars, get some time to go into those villages, ask ordinary people how they feel about it. You realize that sometimes when we are staying in Johannesburg, in Cape Town, we assume that we understand what is going on. The lady from Zambia,
Jessica,
put it very well. You know, I grew up knowing that government gives our chiefs the car. And those cars, they don't pass you on the road. No villager will be walking on the street and the royal car passes him. Those cars belong to us. We use them. We know the chief goes around the villages to attend the Amahota, to attend funerals in the community, to support us. So for us, it gives us a sense of pride. But one day I'm saying, just go to those villages and ask them how they feel. I'm sure you'll come with a different answer. The people who are disagreeing with this, just ask them where they stay. You realize the difference.
All right, Mpo and Sekakune, thank you. Well, in a way, that's what we're doing, is we're asking people to comment on this. Look how many calls we've had from Limpopo on this. Teboho, you're in Limpopo. Do you agree? Is this a source of... Oh, we've just lost both those lines. Sorry about that. You're with SAFM, 8 minutes to 8.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
If you exit Pretoria West or come out of Laudium and you head south on the R55, just note it's a very heavy backlog of traffic that you'll be asked to work through this morning. Stationary Putco bus with trailer blocking the left lane on the M1 South at Oliphants. It's been there a while now. Traffic heading south is back through the Brockfontein interchange. The alternative R101, Pretoria Main or Old Joburg Road as it is there, coming off that M1, jammed all the way down into Midrand as well. So your highway and your byway both backlogging. Durban side this morning, still very heavy queues towards the Bluff. That's on the M7 from Queensborough down to the Belair-Wakesley Road junction. Fairly heavy around Pinetown, the M7 queuing up to St John's Avenue Bridge. Not as bad as it was yesterday, but still slow. And coming out of Pinetown on the M13 towards Paradise Valley, there's some pressure there with the roadworks. Looks like some load shedding disruption just south of them, Schlange Rocks Drive, under pressure both ways today. Cape Town, the R300 north from Delft up towards the turning into Strand Road for an exit into Stickland. Very busy conditions there. The N1 from Plattercliff Hill through to Cuba, get a change, is busy. The M3 quite slow this morning as well, queuing from Constantia Main Road all the way through to Bishop's Court, and some heavy pressure, a little bit worse than normal on the main road into Cork Bay. They're heading from St James going south or coming up from Fish Hook, busy both ways. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Dressing up is a winning mentality.
If you look good, you do good.
You feel good too.
Big ups to Polo South Africa
for making the SABC Sport team look good during the Rugby World Cup France 2023. Class and style on another level.
Rolez-vous.
Brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Stephen Grootes on SAFM.
Well, can you remember when you were actually in matric? Can you remember what it felt like to be ending matric, to sort of finally write the final exam? I remember it so clearly, actually. I remember who I was with. I remember what I sort of did on the day. I remember what we did afterwards. It was exciting. I mean, wasn't it so exciting? But the problem, of course, is, and unfortunately we have this problem where young people have huge parties. They're called pens down parties often. And then you end up with people sometimes hurting themselves, hurting other people. There's a lot of concern actually from the Department of Basic Education about this. Grootes On is the Director in the Department of Basic Education for Social Cohesion in Schools. Liko, good morning. Thanks for your time.
Good morning, Stephen. Good morning to the SAFM listeners.
Are you worried about this? Are you worried that the celebrations, I mean, the English phrase would be can get out of hand, but are you worried that the celebrations could be dangerous?
Absolutely, absolutely. For us, it really is an anxiety-provoking time for us. Whilst they're waiting for their exams and they're anxious about them, we're more anxious about the pens down period, because this is the time when all the investments and efforts that have been made on child protection in the Department of Basic Education are rolled back completely.
What would you advise young people? I mean, for some cases, you need to be very aware of, I mean, it's always the case, young people and alcohol. I mean, it's such a bad mix.
Look, Stephen, as a Department of Basic Education, we strongly believe in child and youth agency. We think that young people, of course, should be liberated, should be allowed to explore themselves and learn and grow from those experiences. But we also are very strong believers in imparting knowledge and information and skills on children that will allow them to make safe, healthy choices about their lives. And so it is important, therefore, that we begin to talk about these things and make young people and their parents aware of the risks and harm that can come with pens down experiences. It's important that we talk openly about it, because whoever presents this opportunity to young people, they only present the nice side of things, but they don't present the risky, harmful side of things. And I think it's important that we balance the messaging, because yes, child and youth agency is important, liberation is important, they must explore and everything, but they must also understand the risks that come with it. Now, also we know that parents can be oblivious sometimes to these issues. They can allow their kids to leave their homes to go and attend a pens down. And remember, Stephen, sometimes these pens down parties are held in school uniforms. So you see your child wearing a school uniform, and so you think, it is fine, thumbs up, because it is in school uniforms. But you don't understand that there's going to be alcohol, there's going to be high-risk behavior, sexual risk behavior, even sexual exploitation of children. Now, it's important that when we talk about these pens down experiences, we also help young people understand that alcohol can be a gateway substance to other drugs. Because there's empirical evidence that shows us that most of the time, those that escalate their use of substance and drugs would have started with alcohol.
Grootes On, thank you very much indeed. Director for Social Cohesion in Schools. Fascinating job, actually, at the Department of Basic Education. And all the way through that, I was just thinking about the Enyobeni Tavern. I bet you were too.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
Tabo on the line from Germiston, the Buckies in Limpopo. Tabo, which way do you go on this?
Hi, good morning, Stephen. How are you?
Yeah, I'm well. Go for it.
Good. Stephen, look, I don't necessarily have a problem, with the whole issues of the premier giving the traditional leaders the buckies. But my problem is, the big question is, what do they do with those buckies? Because there's a whole lot of, there's a whole issue around the contributions that the traditional leaders are making in assisting to address the challenges that are facing South Africa today. Issues of drug drugs, teenage pregnancies, crime. Also, I'm talking about these things also in the rural areas where these traditional leaders, live. So there's a whole lot of an issue around that to say, what do they do with these bakkies? Because, their contribution in addressing these challenges that I've outlined, it's not visible. They're not there. They're not visible. Which programs are they running?
Yeah.
What programs are they running in their own communities to address these issues? I've just mentioned one of them, teenage pregnancies. What are they doing? Are there programs? What are they doing? So what do they need these bakkies for? You know what I'm saying, Stephen? So that is why I'm saying I don't necessarily have a problem with the bakkies, but what do they do with these bakkies? Do they just travel around and go to do their own shopping and groceries, to buy groceries and attend to their families? What do they do for the communities?
All right,
in those villages and all that.
Yeah, no, Tabo on the line from Germiston. Thank you. It's very interesting. I mean, it might be very different from place to place. Might be one of the issues. You're with SAFM, leading the conversation. It's 8 o'clock. Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 38462. Now that's good news.
Independent and impartial. This is SAFM News.
Thank you, Stephen. In your top stories, Floyd Brink reinstated as Joburg Metro Municipal Manager and Ramokgopa to receive energy equipment from China. This is SAFM News. A very good morning. I am Luyanda Maume. The City of Johannesburg Metro Council has confirmed reinstating Floyd Brink as city manager this week